Hi, everybody. It's Michelle Hill, your legacy builder at Winning Proof, and I am here with another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted. And I have a special guest today, Erin Edgar, and I'm going to read her bio as I always do so I get the introduction right. So give me just a sec. Okay. The law office I'm going to start here. Erin Edgar is the attorney owner of the law office of Erin Baker Edgar and has practiced law for nearly a decade. She loves helping busy families get their affairs in order, prepare for the future, protect their children, and save thousands of dollars through the service of estate planning. She is a member of the North Carolina Bar Association, Business Networking International, Toastmasters International, and a number of other professional organizations. She speaks to business groups, churches, parent support groups, and nonprofits about how estate planning with the guidance of an expert attorney can help people attain peace of mind, save thousands of dollars, and protect everything they've worked hard for. She lives in Raleigh, North Carolina with her husband, and when she is not working, Erin enjoys performing and writing music, spreading the art of mindfulness and meditation to bring calmness and clarity to life's chaos, and bird watching. So, welcome, Erin. Thank you for being on Winning Proof Unscripted.
Thank you, Michelle, for the opportunity to be here. I look forward to it.
Yes, so I'm going to just dive right in and just tell people a little bit about why you got into law and what made you focus on estate planning.
Oh, thank you for that question. It is such a good question and opens up a can of worms because it wasn't the same thing for each one. So oddly enough, and it's such a heap of fun when I tell people this, what got me into law, interested in the legal profession? Star Trek.
Okay.
Yes, when I was a teenager, a long time ago, over 30 years ago, if you can believe it, I had a Sunday night ritual with my dad. We would watch Star Trek: The Next Generation. It was on in the late 80s and early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And this was my first exploration into the Star Trek universe. I wasn't really interested until, my dad was watching it. And not only was it a great bonding experience, but it also taught me that people can work collaboratively together to solve their problems, and that if they work together, it can often be a win-win situation. There were some exceptions, but many times the folks in the shows were able to, find a solution. And I thought, what can be used? How charming is this? We can all work together to understand each other better. And I realized that, what could be used to do that? We had a wonderful legal system in our country, and it was probably the closest in the world to allowing people to work together. We had checks and balances. In theory, they should work. We have we have other vehicles. We've got trials where, in theory, the best, the person wins who should. In my teenage brain, it always happened that way. It doesn't, of course. But I realized, pardon me, I realized that the law was the way in which I wanted to bring collaboration into the world. And it didn't quite work out that way. When I got to law school, I realized it was really different. It was a lot of it was conflict and strife and heartache when it really didn't need to be. And I became very disenchanted for a while, and then I realized it can still be used to affect change and preserve individuality. At its heart, that is what our country is about. We may not do that all the time, but we really do try in our human way to do that. And so the second part of that question comes in because I didn't really know what I wanted to do for a long time. I did some conflict resolution work with the North Carolina court system, Wake County specifically here in North Carolina. helping to mediate cases in criminal court. That was sort of fun, actually. It was usually when you think criminal, you think murder, but this is really like neighbors who got mad at each other and yelled at each other and threw things at each other, did stupid things, coworkers who assaulted each other, things like that because they were upset.
Wow.
And it was really at its heart about the relationship that they had. And so we didn't want people with convictions on their record because that causes a lot of problems for people down the road with employment and obtaining housing for rent and even mortgage loans and things like that. And so we went in and resolved the conflict so there was no conviction and no and theoretically they had an agreement to work on that they could work from to govern their relationship terms in the future with regard to that dumb thing they did. My first case actually was a woman who ran over her neighbor's pet turtle. I'll never forget it.
My gosh.
And so it was very helpful for people, but it was not lucrative and it was unsatisfying in a lot of ways. And so I worked for a nonprofit for a while, doing work for them, for people who were in poverty and really needed, legal assistance and couldn't afford it. And then I realized several things, getting to your second question. Um, After I started practicing law, which was 10 years ago, 11 years ago now as a licensed attorney, I had two things happen in my life. The first was I realized that I would not be able to have children. Physically, it was not possible without a lot of heartache and trouble.
Mm.
And for one reason or another, my husband and I were not interested in adopting or fosterage. So I was very saddened by this and really kept it inside for a long period and then realized I wanted to give back to the world by using law in some way to protect children. And yet I wasn't interested in doing divorce work or custody work, anything like that. It just didn't interest me that much. And then as I was playing with the idea of starting my own law firm, admittedly without really knowing what I wanted to do, I had a death in my family. And everything came together at that point. My family member had a will and a trust, and it was kind of a fancy estate plan. It was great, actually, but it was 20 years outdated and it did not work. And so family strife ensued while my, uncle and father ran around trying to make sure that she had someone in line to make her medical decisions because she was very quickly just going downhill alarmingly. And her financial decisions. And there was a lot of stress after her death because we believed that she had different intentions regarding what she wanted to do with her property, but we didn't know. And so family members who were unhappy were yelling at everybody else. And I was actually asked to help and could not because I was in another state. And so I made a commitment to my own community, in myself that said, I will not let anyone in my community go through that process if I can help it, if I can help them. And if they have young minor children, I will do whatever I can legally to protect their children and ensure that if something happens to them, their children will be provided for and guardianed, I guess protected by the people that our clients know love them as much as my clients do. Um, and those were two commitments that I have attempted to uphold through my own law practice as I have begun this work, planning for people's, getting their affairs in order, getting organized, doing all those things that my bio said, protecting them, their children in the long term, saving them and their family money because they have their decisions ironed out, and protecting their property and make sure it goes to the people that they want. And that was the 15-minute answer to your 2-second question.
That gave such a good comprehensive background. Thank you so much for that thoroughness. And I want to ask you, you obviously got through law school. I'm guessing you did very, very, very well because you're super smart, but you are blind.
Mm-hmm.
How did that work? How did you navigate that process as a blind person?
Well, it's very interesting. You should assume that I did very, very well in law school because actually I didn't. I'll just, put that notion aside right now. And I'll explain that law school in the 90s is very different than it is now.
Okay.
And so when I got there, I actually I thought it was a very strange way of thinking and doing things. And so we were learning a lot of case law and what the rules were without understanding either their practical applications or the reason that they made sense at the time. And maybe do or don't make sense. You know, you have to decide. And so I got to law school, and from the beginning, I was just a little bit behind. We had, you know, navigating the process as a blind person was very different then than it is now. There were fewer blind law students. And so when I was an undergrad, what would happen is that I would tell the university, you know, I need these books, you know, we need them. And then they would find local volunteers to read them. The problem, or they would get them on cassette tape, if you can believe it.
Hmm.
Um, that was back in the tape era.
Yes.
And that was the way we did things. And when I got to law school, I made the assumption that that was how it was going to work. Then um, I realized that the law school that I went to had never had a blind person, even though I went to the same university as the law school.
Mm.
Their departments didn't really work well together now that I know this in hindsight. And so when I got to law school, I didn't have my books yet because we were still trying to figure out how to get them.
Mm.
So the first semester I got behind because I got books late and I was trying to frantically take notes in class and learn, and it felt just off kilter to me getting started. So I
Mhm.
was off kilter and I really never got back on kilter. Um, but when I was in law school, I did realize a couple of things. Number one, um, you know, don't be afraid to ask for what you want or need, especially if you're a disabled student, because you never know your uh, you know, dean of students can probably get it for you, and whatever you need, as long as it's not unreasonable. Of course, mostly you need books. Um, they will find a way. What ended up happening for me is that the agreement that I essentially came to with the publishers, um, or that the university came to on my behalf, was that I would purchase the books in print. So I have a whole bookshelf of books that have never been opened. Um, and no one will want them. But they're beautiful. They're, you know, almost virgin books. And the second part of that agreement was for an additional fee, I could purchase galley copies of the books on computer disk. I mean, they were floppy disks. It was so weird back then.
Yes.
But yeah, I got them on computer disks so I could get the book on the computer and I could read along with my classmates. We got the agreement, you know, and after the first semester, which was a little rocky, I got back on kilter and everything was fine. And I didn't do terrible. I was just kind of an average student. That to me was a little bit of a, you know, downgrade because I was a really high achieving undergrad. So I was like, oh gosh, I'm just average here. Oh, you know, and I had to, you know, I got used to that. But law school was kind of a double-edged sword. It was,
Mhm.
some of the courses were interesting, but I found that it took a lot of the creativity out of me personally and made law seem like a very bland, dry, boring field when in fact it isn't. The more I actually practice law, the more I learn that you kind of, well, I wouldn't say this. You have rules and you follow them, and yet you also have to make some of it up as you go along because everyone encounters situations that have not been encountered before. The Supreme Court Justice William Douglas, a long, long ago, he's passed ages ago, but he said something that I find very appropriate to myself. He said that 90% of our decisions as lawyers and judges are made based on how we feel. 10% of it is finding the law to back us up. So at the end of the day, human beings in law make decisions like human beings everywhere else. We make them based on how we feel, and we respond in the way that best upholds the principles that we live by. And I answered a lot of other things that you didn't ask. Um, but at the end of the day, I will answer your question. I made it through law school by being myself and not letting my blindness be in the way.
Good.
And that's how I navigate my life. Um, I am myself, and I try my best not to let it get in my way. I can't say I succeed all the time, but I
Well,
try my
you know
best.
what? Whether cited or not cited, I think we all get in our own way
We do.
in a lot
We
of
do.
ways, you know. So, but I think that I made a note here while you were talking that there is greatness in average. And
Yes, there
you
is
have,
greatness in average.
yes, you have proven that, by just getting through. Even sighted people have, they don't, just
Hmm.
because you're sighted
Gone
doesn't
through
mean
it.
you drive through law school.
Oh no. And there were, I mean, most of my friends in law school were like, gosh, this is hard, and they were sighted. So I knew it wasn't just me. And it took a while to pass the bar exam, but I knew it wasn't just me. Other people, I mean, John F. Kennedy took as many times to pass the bar as I did. So, I feel like I'm in good company. He was our president.
Yes, yes, you are. I love that. And the next question I want to ask you, and I know it's a simple question. Maybe I don't know if it requires a simple answer, but when is the best time for somebody, a single person or a newly married couple, to plan their estate? Because a lot of people say, "What's the point? I don't have
I
anything."
don't have anything.
There you go.
Oh, yes. You know, it's not so much about what you have, it is about who you love.
Ah, excellent. Okay,
And
expound on
so,
that. Yes,
yes, I will expound. I just wanted to put that theatrical pause in there.
yes,
It's about who you love and trust and how you want to be supported if something should happen to you, and how you want to let them know you love and trust them by leaving them whatever legacy you want. So I tell people this, that every time you have a transition in your life, you need to revisit all of your legal life and
mm,
to make sure that it is in order, just as you would visit your financial life, just as you would revisit your personal life and those personal decisions. So let's say you bought a home, you moved to a different city,
mm,
um, you do everything you need to do to buy the home. You uh, get your loan,
yeah,
you move in, all your personal belongings are now in your house. You set up bank accounts. So now all your money is going to where it needs to go. So your personal and financial life is organized. Have you stopped to think about what would happen to your home or your spouse or your kids if you don't have spouse or kids, if something happened to you? Who would make your medical decisions, for instance, if you were alive, but you couldn't for some reason, or your financial decisions if you were alive and couldn't? So those are legal things that people don't think about. But I would say every time you have a transition in your life, it doesn't need to be buying a home. That's just one that I chose. But every transition is important to make sure all your affairs follow you and get changed along with you. So I tell college students, when you go to college, get a financial power of attorney so that you can have your parents help you with your bank accounts and make decisions for you if you can't. Um, and I have actually had some people take me up on it and do it. Financial and healthcare, when they become 18, you're responsible for your own adult life. Get that life in order. Have people in your court who can help you out if you can't do the things you need to do as an adult. If you have children, get your life in order again. Revisit, if you've got one, any of your estate documents. And by all means, get guardians for those kids if something happens to you when you're alive. Because if you can't be found and your children are left alone or with a caregiver and the police show up, they take your kids.
yes,
They don't do it out of malice. They do it because children under the age of 18 cannot be left alone. It's for their protection. But they may end up going somewhere and you get back from whatever happened to you. You had an accident, something happened, you didn't get home on time. Maybe your kids aren't there. Where are your? So it's very important that something be set up to protect your kids. So any transition in your life, regardless of what it is, marriage, having kids, buying a house, Even if you don't have a house, an estate plan is really good to have. I have a client now who's got a sister who died without a will, and her sister left her stuff in just an absolute mess. Not intentionally, but she didn't have a will to say who would get the money she had. She has a pension that was unclaimed, and no one knows what to do with it. Um, she has a lot of unclaimed things, and we have to organize all of this. And at the end of the day, it's costing my client money. She gets reimbursed eventually, but she has to pay me to help her do it. And if you don't pay an attorney to help you administer someone's estate, it'll take you a lot longer. You'll miss stuff. You won't do things you need to do. And so it's a very like streamlined process that people skip steps and they think they're okay, and the clerk of court will yell at you. Um,
Yes.
and so, she has to pay for an attorney. She has to figure out what happens. The rental agency that she rented her home from, that the client rented her home from, is a chaotic place that my client can't navigate, and so she needs my help. And so, at the end of the day, if you have at least very simple documents done, you'll get your intentions out there, you'll tell people how you want things distributed, and you'll have, more importantly, people lined up in your life to help you when you can't manage everything you need to manage.
Man, that is so true. And what you said, all those things you just said is the reason why I tell people the most loving thing you can do for your kids, for your family, is to have some kind of document in place. And that's what you just outlined is the reason why you need something. It doesn't have to be super elaborate, just something in place that gives somebody authority to work through all these
Exactly.
issues that can come up, right?
It's like the plane on the oxygen
Yeah.
mask on the plane. Do you know what they tell people when you get on a plane and the flight attendant says, "Here's an oxygen mask if the plane gets into an emergency and you need oxygen.
Yeah.
Put
Yes.
it on yourself first
Yes. Always.
before putting it on your children who need help or whoever needs help. Put it on yourself first, because if you do not care for yourself and get yourself straightened out and supported, you will not be able to care for your children. And or when you die, your children will be left with a mess to clean up.
Yes.
And you don't
Yes.
want your memory of them, their memory of you, tarnished by that if you love them.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Okay, that kind of brings me to my next question, and this is going to be fun for you. Is that what do you see as the top three biggest mistakes that people make when they're planning their estate, when they're trying to get it all laid out?
The first mistake is not doing it. Okay. And there are three reasons why people put it off. In my experience, I call it the three myths of estate planning. Um, there are three reasons that people put it off. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. And I'm not old or sick enough. The last one is kind of two separate things, but it's kind of the same thing. It's not an emergency yet.
Yes.
So, those three things I demonstrated in my last question. You don't need to have an emergency. And in fact, it's best if you do it when you don't have an emergency, because you can be more thorough and really get the holes plugged if you don't have an emergency, and show the most love possible by protecting yourself and your property, even what little you do have. Um, because that leads to the second one. I don't have enough money. Well, it does cost. It's an initial investment. If you want to do it right, just leave off the LegalZoom. It just, I don't even want to go there. I've seen some of the stuff that LegalZoom churns out, and they say supposedly they have attorneys look over it, but they only know what you answer with the questionnaire that you answer. And it's a very simple,
Yeah.
non-inclusive questionnaire. And so when I get things from people who say, well, I did it on LegalZoom, but I don't know if I did it right. Can I get a review? And I'll say, well, did you answer? How did you know, I'll ask them questions and they're like, we didn't get these questions. And I say, well, all the questions that I'm asking you are important because there are holes in this plan. It didn't address these questions because they didn't know how to answer the question. So, um, I don't have enough money is a problem. So it is an investment, and I understand that. And at the end of the day, if you don't do it at all, you'll end up spending at least $6,000 in court fees, plus maybe double that amount for an attorney, maybe less, at least that same amount for an attorney at minimum, to try and wade through the mess that's been left. Your family will, rather, if you're deceased. And if you're alive, but you can't make your medical decisions or your financial decisions, you will spend, your family will spend money making those decisions for you and possibly having to make payments out of their own pocket until someone can be appointed to reimburse them from your bank account. And there will be court proceedings to try and appoint that person if you don't do it, if there's a dispute in your family as to who will make the decisions. And let me tell you something. People say, it's not, no one in my family will fight. They love me. Wrong, wrong, wrong,
That's
wrong.
right. That's it. Wrong, wrong, wrong. I agree with you there.
Oh, and in death and illness do weird things to families. Weird things. And they are in court disputing who's going to be your guardian because you haven't named a power of attorney for you.
Yes.
And their fees for that. So in the long run, it saves you and your family money if you make this investment now and get this done. And in addition, your family will know that all this is taken care of. And if they have questions, there's an attorney that they can go to. That's really important because
Yes.
people might have questions and then they're like, who did my mother didn't have an attorney? And on many estate plans, the attorneys will put their names. My name's all over my plans intentionally because I want families to know who did this and how I can be reached. And even if my contact information has changed by then, my name and my firm name is still there.
Yes. Oh man, that is I know we had a previous conversation. I have a little bit of experience, a terrible experience
Mm.
with a a family member's estate that thought that it was ironclad. So I won't get into that, but that's what you're saying is so important. Spend the money now. Yes, it's going to be a little bit of an investment, but in the long run, it helps everybody and you can go through all those things. So, what I want to ask too is that is it important in today's landscape to have a digital executor exclusively because of social media, online accounts, and all that? Did that person have to be separate? And is there, I mean, I have a digital executor that's unofficial. Well, it's official. I won't, you'll slap me on my hand if I tell you, but just somebody to take care of closing down social media accounts, uh, online accounts, all that.
So let me preface what I want to address something that I mentioned in my last question. I actually quoted you a dollar amount as to how much the court fees were.
Mm-hmm.
That is only in some parts of North Carolina, and it's not set in stone. So I don't want people to think, oh, well, it's only going to be $6,000. There are many places where it's much more than that.
Oh, yes.
And so it's only it was an example number only. Just to show that, the investment to do an estate plan is probably less than that, depending on what you decide you want. And court fees can be that or more. So with that said, I want to address what you just said about a digital executor. Um, Digital assets are very weird these days because there aren't really very many laws about them, but
Yes.
they're around. What are these things? They also have like these, I mean, it can be anything from Bitcoin to your social media accounts to certain business accounts that you may have,
Yes.
cloud-based software, cloud-based storage. And what are the things that is like, it's the art, it's digital art.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't remember what it's called, but it has fungible assets. That's what it is.
Okay.
And it's, it's weird things, like people can buy these digital objects and they make sound and they have animation and it's really cool. It's very weird. They're original designs. I don't know. Anyway, so digital assets are quite broad ranging, but there are no real specific laws to govern them. And most people's estate plans these days don't really allow for them. Um, what a lot of people do is something that I do, is that I have plans created for them, um, in my powers of attorney or my wills that say my executor who is appointed, or
Yeah.
my agent who is appointed to manage my assets or whatever, can also manage my digital assets. Now, that being said, you give them the authority, but what people might not know is that each company that governs one of those digital assets is oftentimes a private organization or company, and they have their own rules about how you get access to the
Ooh.
asset. And so, for instance, Google, they have their own rules about how you prove you are granted access. So Google's rules for how you get access to their accounts are different from Facebook's rules. And so every person who is that agent or that executor, depending on what stage of life you're in, or that personal representative, let's just say, has to abide by the rules of that company. And it can be very frustrating. But yes, you should always have someone appointed to be able to do that for you.
Okay. What if somebody has like, pre-death planning right now, and they just said, okay, here, as part of being my digital executor, here's all my passwords. Here, just go in there and here's where my stuff is. Can they legally operate within all the accounts, bank account, online banking portals and all that? Can they
Well,
do that legally or do they need permission to do that once a person is deceased?
um, legally, usually they have the permission. Just in most estate planning documents, once someone's deceased, basically you just appoint someone to manage your affairs. And that is A to Z. I mean, they have the ability to do whatever it is that you have to do to wind up their affairs. And there's no real reason, according to the law, to give them restrictions on what they can and can't do. That being said, like I said, each company has their own way of proving someone is deceased. And if people don't have someone's password, they're going to need to abide by that. If they do, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it's up to you to whom you give your password, and you give that trust to some individual. You're taking a risk, and there's nothing by law that says you can't give your password to someone else. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so people do it, and it makes life easier if that person is also the administrator of the estate. If that person isn't, and it's an unscrupulous person, you risk turning your post life over to someone else and
Yes.
having that person defraud your estate. And so it's very important to let your executor or your agent know how to get into your accounts, but at the same time, not give that information away.
Yeah, it
That
would have
person
to be.
is trustworthy.
Yeah, it'd have to be somebody very trustworthy. Yes.
Mhm.
So you started your own firm. What are the things, maybe top two or three things that you have learned about yourself through entrepreneurship? Because it's no joke, is it? It's
Yeah,
There's some journey involved.
it's not a joke. And when I started, I had no idea how I was going to proceed. I didn't know anything about running a business or managing money or really anything like that. So, the first thing I would say is have a vision for where you want to go. That is so important to have a vision for, 1 to 3 to 5 years out. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be right. It just has to be an idea of where you want to go, and keep your mind focused on that, because without that, you will go nowhere. Like I
Yes.
did the first 6 months of my business, spinning my wheels. The second thing I would say about running a business is be content. You don't have to be happy. Be content with making mistakes, because you're going to.
Yes.
And don't and try not to take it personally when that happens. Just learn from it. Um, and number three, building a business is all about building relationships that you relationships with people, and dare I say objects, and I'll get to why I say that in a minute, that you know, like, and trust, and who know, like, and trust you right back. That phrase gets a little bit overused, but it is important to have the trust and respect of people around you and to make as many connections as possible and to develop discernment like you would in any relationship about who's going to be a good client or partner for you and who isn't. And that is going to be based on you and who you want to serve and how you want to serve in the world. And I also said build relationships with objects. It really is an object, but the two key things you need to have a relationship with and that we need to understand as business owners are number one, ourselves. There are actually three things. Number one, ourselves. Number two, our client, like who is the client we want to most serve. Number three, what gives us the most pleasure in our business, what we love doing and don't, because at some point we're going to have to delegate. And number four, we need to have at least a good trusting relationship with money. And I will tell you that is something I am working on still.
Yeah. I
But
understand that. I am
we, yeah,
under construction as well with
mhm.
that.
And it's understanding that and trusting that enough work will be there for us when we need it. That is huge. And really, why a lot of businesses fail is because people get really frustrated when the cash flow is inconsistent. And it does get inconsistent.
Yes.
So, in those first 2 years, if you need a side hustle or you need another family member to support you, like I did, and I'm very blessed for that, then that's what you need. However, we need to also understand how to manage the money we have and use it and be a good steward of it and have it support us in what we want to do and in our overall vision, because that's what it really is there for. And be confident that we are valuable and charge accordingly. I guess that's the last thing about money is that we went into business for a particular reason because we felt that we could serve people in our own unique way and trust that that unique way of service is valuable and that people will come to us because they value us as entrepreneurs and our uh, mission and vision and how we serve them is valuable to them. And we need to make sure that we give money the respect that it's due in that place.
That is such sage advice because I know having my own business, I think this year it'll be 15 years. And, I worked when I first started, I worked in my business on the weekends and holidays and evenings. And then I had a full-time job and was a personal chef one night and a personal trainer 2 other nights of the week.
Wow.
But so I did I did the work. But as you said, it's just you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, really, and you just have to know the ebb and flow of business. That it's not money is just not going to for the average person. For I mean, there's those who make $1 million a month online, or they say they do, but for the rest of us, yeah, exactly. For the rest of us, it's just we have to get used to that. And like you said, get the side hustle, get the whatever you need to do. If that business is important enough to you, you're going to make it survive. You're going to
make it exactly. And there's one more thing that I want to say that's very important.
Yes.
For a while, your business may need to be the side hustle because you need to support yourself or someone else, and that's okay. And the most important thing, and it sounds hokey, but it's true, put yourself first. Again, if you are an entrepreneur and you are the only person in your business is you.
Yes. Yes.
And so caring for yourself is not wrong, because if you put your business first and not yourself in terms of the care you give to either one, you will burn out.
Yes.
And I say this from experience because I hit that point late last year. I hit that point. I was mismanaging everything about my business, um, because I was not organized, and a lot had come in and I didn't know how to handle it. And I had not really allowed myself to have fun. I hadn't allowed myself to be creative or do things outside of work for a long time. I said I was, but I really wasn't. I was really thinking about work when I was doing other things. And I really hit that point of almost burning out and saying, I'm going to have to just pack it in. And I realized a couple of things. Number one, not allowing myself to have joy in my life transferred into my business. And my clients noticed it, and my people in my family noticed it, and everyone around me noticed it, and the money noticed it because it stopped coming in.
Ah, yes.
So
So wise.
always, always honor yourself above everything. Honor your boundaries. Be aware of what you need physically to maintain yourself and be in it for you to be healthy, because you need to live in order to run
Yes.
your business, right? You are the heart and soul of it. And so caring for yourself first is actually not selfish. It's the best and most loving thing you can do for yourself and your business, and uphold your personal boundaries.
Oh man, that is so wise, and it's so true. And it goes back to the oxygen mask analogy, is that you
Mhm.
have to do that. You have to pay yourself first. You have to, and I resonates with me what you're saying, because I have fallen into that and become to the point of I don't want to do this anymore type of thing. And um it's not a good place to be, and with our phones and with the computer and with our laptops and with our tablets and everything, it's so easy not to unplug from it.
Mhm.
And when a potential client, that one that you really want, texts you or emails you on a Sunday and you don't work on
Mhm.
Sundays, it's so easy to just like, okay, nope,
Mhm.
nope, they're not going to hear from me
Mhm.
until tomorrow, because those are my boundaries. And that's, I
Mhm.
so appreciate the things
Yeah.
you just shared.
And I had a client actually the other day say, "Can we meet on Saturday?" And I said, "No, I
Good.
don't meet clients on Saturday. That's a boundary. I apologize if I didn't make it clear, because I want people to know they're important, right? You're important to me. It's important that we
Yes.
meet, just not then." And
Exactly.
people will be understanding about it as long as you let them know, these are my boundaries. And likewise, we need to, and I know we're getting a little short on time, but we need to have boundaries on who we serve. And if someone comes
Yes.
in and we think, ooh, this is going to be really lucrative. I had
Yeah.
this happen the other day. Ooh, man, I could get a $25,000 retainer for this. And then I thought about it and I said, I am not the best person for this person, because number one, it's a divorce case and I could do it. I mean, I know the law,
Mhm.
but I don't know the judges. I don't know other people who are going to that I'm going to need to work with in order to get this done. Like I might need a private investigator. I don't know any private investigators.
Mhm.
I am not the best person to serve this particular, I've had two people come in recently with these kinds of issues, these particular people.
Mhm.
Um, and while that may have been very lucrative, it's not the best service to the people who are coming to me. So if we live from a place of service and serve from a place of service, that might mean we have to turn away things we're not going to be the best at. We turn away the money. But
Yeah.
that's okay, because people will remember that. It will come back to us. And we have and I need to, we all need to trust that. People will remember. I've had people tell me, "I
Yes.
appreciate that you told me that." And gave me referrals to someone else who could be a better fit for me. And I
Yes.
will remember that.
Yes, absolutely. And saying no, if somebody isn't aligned with your values, or just
Mhm.
misaligned in whatever way, it's okay to say no. It's to their benefit and to your
To
benefit
yours.
to say no. And that kind of moves me in to the final kind of question I want to ask you. You're not all work. You are a
No.
singer, a musician, a creative writer, and a public speaker. So tell us a little bit about that other life you live of
Of
fun.
course. Yeah, and I've been reclaiming that lately. It's been wonderful. And well, I have sung ever since I was a kid, like ever since I was 6 years old, and I sang in front of the PTA. I still don't know how that happened, but um, I have been a musical person my whole life. I knew that it wasn't really what I wanted to do for a career. It just didn't sound fun to me, getting up there and doing concerts and having a press agent and going, traveling around. And I just didn't want that. And so I have made it a point to keep music in my life. I sing with the North Carolina Master Chorale, and we sing with the North Carolina Symphony a lot of the time. Next year we won't be, which is kind of sad, but we usually do at least once a year. And I also I got this really cool opportunity last summer to sing at Carnegie Hall in New York. It was amazing,
Oh, yeah.
amazing. And I still just I get goosebumps when I think about it. It was a year ago, mid-June already that happened.
Wow.
And I am a proud bird watcher. I go out and listen to all the birds, and recently began picking that up again with
Okay.
a couple of friends of mine. And it's very aligned with music to me. And it was, one of those things that I enjoy. We have such musical creatures all around us. They make the neatest songs, and they're all different. So it's a pleasurable thing. Creative writing, writing is a way for me to process things that are going on in my life.
Mhm.
And so in 2019, when I was debating on really getting this firm off the ground, I wrote a novel for National Novel Writing Month. It was a wild ride. National Novel Writing Month is always in November, and you write 50,000 word novel.
Yeah.
It's a charitable organization. It's just it was heaps of fun. It's not published. It was just a mess, but it was some of the most fun I
Yeah.
have ever had, and I still do the writing. And the mindful living, basically, I have determined that in business and in life, it's really important to listen to people and also listen to yourself, because your body and your mind and heart will tell you what you really do and don't want. Because your heart and body are the things, in my viewpoint anyway, that are most closely aligned with whatever higher power you believe in, or most closely aligned with what your innermost being really, really wants. And so mindfulness is a way to be in the present moment and accept what you hear and feel without judgment, and use that with curiosity to figure out your next steps into the future so that you don't catastrophize and live in a place of negativity like most of us do every day. Um,
Yes.
because we're wired that way. It's the way we were designed. Um, and I could get into that, but I won't geek out over evolution. Um, the last thing I would say is that public speaking initially was a way for me to talk about what I did in business, and I still do that. That's what Toastmasters International is, public speaking and leadership organization.
Yep.
And it has also come to my attention that in developing that skill, it is a very powerful skill because it allows you to express yourself and your ideas in a coherent way, developing speeches, and it just naturally comes through into anything you say. And it's a powerful way to assert your own beliefs and take a stand for what you believe in. So it's definitely one of Napoleon Hill's six ghosts of fear. It's definitely one of them that's worth conquering.
Yes, absolutely. We discovered on our initial conversation that we are both Toastmasters.
Yes.
It is a wildly helpful and resourceful organization to be a part of. Super nice people, super
Mhm.
supportive people, and you can practice all kinds of different methods. I used to try to memorize my speech because I can write. So
Mhm.
I would have a beautifully crafted speech and then try to memorize it. And then I would get stuck because I couldn't memorize a certain part
Yeah.
of it and all that stuff. So I'm just
Mhm.
like, forget that. Just talk about things that ignite my soul and that are of interest to me. Then it's much easier to understand rather than coming up with a random new topic.
Absolutely, because you're speaking from the heart.
Yes, yes. So my final last question to you is, how can people reach you? Say somebody has listened to this and they say, "Oh my gosh, you totally reminded me. Yes, I've got to get this done. This estate planning done." How can people connect with you and reach you to get that done, and just to connect with you on social media?
Absolutely. I love to connect with people, and I am very honest about whether or not I think we can work together. I have a free 20-minute, complimentary, I should say, 20-minute consultation that I give to people, and we figure out, whether we're a good fit or not, whether or not we can, whether or not it's the right time or not, and then we can move forward from that. And so there's never any like, oh, I'm going to have to, immediately fork over my soul just to connect with her. I will, guide people along the decision track there,
Yeah.
because, and I know how to do that in a relatively efficient way. So if you'd like to connect with me for estate planning or anything else, that is a fantastic thing, and I would love to connect with you. My uh, email address is erin@erinedgarlegal.com, but the best way to reach me is by phone, actually, at 919-807-1863. And you can also go to my website. It's erinedgarlegal.com, and find out a little bit about me, although it is outdated, but it gets you started, and contact me through that form there. And I'm also on Facebook. At my Facebook page is Erin Edgar Legal. Um, and those are the chief ways that I can be contacted.
That's so wonderful. And I will include all of this in the show notes, as they say.
Mhm.
And so you'll have all of that. So, but people can rewind it as well and listen to all the contact ways. Erin, you were such a delight today. Thank you so much for all the helpful information, all the insight and the wisdom that you shared. Very rich time.
Thank you, Michelle. It was a joy to be here, and I look forward to more future contact with you.
Absolutely, me too. And I will refer people. In fact, I will add you. This is everybody listening can is my witness. I will add you to my website page under my partners. And
Oh, fantastic.
then people, when they visit my website, they can, and I have another attorney there, but he's a criminal defense attorney
Mhm.
and a fellow Toastmaster, but this is completely different. And so I will add you to that page, and we'll have future conversations. And everybody that listens to these knows how to reach me. winningproof@gmail.com, and my website is winningproof.com. And if you need a book, if you know somebody that needs to write a book or wants to write a book, I have some cost efficient ways to get that done now. There's an you're so
I
cognizant,
heard, yes, I heard,
Toastmasters, of every that you say.
I
and,
heard myself doing it.
and we become experts at that. But I just want to, let people know that there's some cost efficient ways to get your book done if you really want to write it yourself, instead of paying the full price for a ghostwriter, it's just not I'll say a cheap proposition. They can get pricey. So if you have an idea, just reach out to me. I'll be glad to help you in any way I can. I do offer a 30-minute complimentary consultation, and that's you can find that anywhere I am. And I'm not going to say all of my website, social media stuff, because y'all know where to find me. I have learned the word y'all finally after 12 years. So thank you for watching another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted.